Welcome to Genre Chat. I'm Cherrilynn Bisbano. Today we're talking about copywriting, and we have an amazing copywriter with us. His name is Holland Webb. He writes for Almost an Author, but I'm going to let him tell you about himself. Holland, welcome.
Thank you, Cherrilynn. How are you?
I'm doing great, and you?
Good. Doing just fine. I am a copywriter, which really means that I write for businesses. So I write blogs, I write product descriptions, websites, fundraising letters for nonprofits, anything that has to do with business. Copywriting is writing copy or writing content to make money, to have sales. So I right now write full-time as a freelancer, have several clients. I have in the past written for agencies, a digital marketing agency, and before that I've written directly for nonprofit clients.
Oh, that's wonderful. How did you get into copywriting?
I actually started out as a grant writer for a nonprofit. And grant writing is more a form of technical writing. It's a little bit of a hybrid, I guess, between technical writing and copywriting. But after I had written grants for several years, one of my former companies was contracting with a freelance copywriter, and she left. So they knew that I was back in town, and they said, well, do you want to do this? I haven't written much of this. They said, well, you wrote some of it when you were here before, and you wrote grants. Just give it a shot and see what you can do. So I did, and got started writing. And I talked to my editor there, and I said, do other companies need this? Is it just nonprofits? And she said, oh, there's lots of work in copywriting. There's lots of work in copywriting. You should definitely get started on it. So she gave me a few pointers, and I started seeking clients, and here we are.
Now, what is the greatest lesson you've learned as a copywriter as far as the writing craft goes?
I think it's simplicity. Simplicity, because people have to understand. People want to be inspired, they want to be informed, and they need to be called to action. So every piece that you do really needs to include all of those things in some way. You may not have a call to action every single time, particularly if you're working for somebody who's sending out 2 emails a week. They may not say bye every time. But ultimately, you're building up to another call to action, another call to buy, another call to give. But you're inspiring, you're informing, you're calling to action, and the clearer, simpler, cleaner you can write, the better off you are. That way people are not confused about what you're sharing with them, and they're not confused about what you want them to do. I find particularly nonprofits will hold back just a little bit from asking for fear that people will be offended. And they say, well, people know. They know that when we send them a letter describing need, that they should give. And no, they have to be directly asked, this is our need. This is how you can help. This is your opportunity to give. Even down to the amount, so that people really understand what it is you want them to do.
That's wonderful. Now, I know the whole world needs copywriters. Have you ever written for another country? And if you have, can you explain the difference?
I have written for hotels in Germany, the Netherlands, Croatia,
wow,
India, and the UK. But all of that was written in English, and then it was later translated by professional translators into, I think, German, French, sometimes Romanian, Hungarian, whatever the languages were in that area. I didn't really change a lot, but I found it very difficult to work with that particular client because there's just a difference in how you write from country to country. For instance, India is very bold in what they say. For hotels, a lot of them would talk about bring all your friends and gossip. Or they would just straight out say, we use our free Wi-Fi to post pictures on social media and make all your friends jealous. The Germans weren't quite like that. They wanted a much more restrained approach. Some people say American copy is much more aggressive, depending on what country you're from. Some is very, very restrained and almost cold, all the way to that forceful, direct. It just depends. But once you've kind of read through a few pieces, you know what people want, you know how they respond. You can do it.
Wonderful. Now, you wrote an article for Almost an Author about getting started as a freelancer. Can you kind of recap what that article said? Because I know people are watching in this and they're probably like, well, I don't write well enough. I would like to get paid even just a little bit for writing. How do people get started?
Mm-hmm. You can start a lot of ways. What's important is not that you have any particular academic background. People with all kinds of academic backgrounds and none at all can work as copywriters. One of the highest paid copywriters is Carol Tice, and she dropped out of college after 2 years with a major in music.
Yeah, I've heard of her.
So it's not that you need any kind of special training, really. What you really need to do is prove that you can write. And fortunately, we can now publish blogs. We can write for LinkedIn Pulse. We can write anything we want to write and post it online. We can guest blog for other people. So we can start to be seen as writers. And you can put together your own portfolio. There's a site, journoportfolio.com, that will allow you to put 11 pieces on their site for free. And you have a series of clips. And then you can send a link to that to different people that you want to work for, that you want to write for.
What is that? Can you give us that site one more time?
Journo Portfolio, JOURNO portfolio.com. And you can also buy packages if you have a portfolio and you want to buy a package, but they will let you put 11 pieces on there for free. Then you can put a link to your site in a letter or an email inviting people to hire you. I know with the digital marketing agencies that I've worked for, they usually want an audition piece.
And what is that?
Where you write something for them that's similar to what they would normally want, a 500-word piece, 1,000-word piece, a couple of pieces. They look at it and either see, we want you, we don't want you, or they can also look at it and say, oh, I think you'd be a great fit for this particular client, and then they can direct you to different clients in their agency.
Wonderful. So what else does a beginner need to know? They're going to make a lot of money right away, aren't they?
It depends. How much money you make really depends on who you work for. I know a lot of people will go to these sites like Upwork, where there is a lot of opportunity, but a lot of that opportunity is very low dollar. Because there are second language copywriters in the Philippines and India that will write for $5. There's even Fiverr, the website Fiverr, where you can go on there and people will want a 1,000-word piece for $5. People like, and the people who are hiring you at that point, if they really want a piece for that cheap, they probably don't care about the quality. But people who will pay you are people who care about the quality. So I really wouldn't start on Upwork unless you're willing to write something for free or almost free. And even then, you might not get invited. So you can do that. If you want to write for free or almost free, you can volunteer to write for your church. You can volunteer to write for your favorite nonprofit. You can volunteer to write for your friend's business and get yourself some clips and then start pitching to local advertising agencies, or go on a site like Hubstaff. They offer a little bit better quality. LinkedIn ProFinder offers a little bit better quality. I got a great client. My very best client actually came off of Hubstaff.
Oh, wow. Wonderful. Now, what words of wisdom would you give somebody who wants to get into copywriting?
Do it. There is probably more money in copywriting than in other forms of writing, unless you're really lucky, unless you're J.K. Rowling and you just hit that one thing that sells so brilliantly. There's not a lot of money in novel writing. There's not a whole lot obviously in writing devotionals and things like that, unless you should happen to be one of the very, very few stars in that particular orbit.
Right.
In copywriting, there's so much need for content that you can start getting paid almost right away. You may do a little bit early on for free or very low cost, but after that, you can start getting paid. The other thing is, if it's really your heart's ambition to write a novel or to write devotions or to write Bible studies, a lot of the elements of copywriting can be transitioned into that other form of writing later on. The essayist and novelist Dorothy Sayers, who wrote The Mind of the Maker and Are Women Human and Gaudy Night, she was first a copywriter. She was a copywriter for 9 years.
Wow.
Jan Karon, who wrote the Mitford series, one of the biggest selling fiction authors in the country, she was a copywriter. That's how she began. So it does, and it can lead you into other forms of writing if you want it to.
Now, do you have to look up the information for the copywriter? Do they give you the information? Because I know sometimes you get a job. How do you get the tools to complete it?
Okay. Sometimes I have gotten either a lot of links saying start here and learn about it, and some information saying this is exactly what we want you to say, or this is the message we want you to communicate. Typically that's been with companies that are tech companies, and they have some really particular product that they want you to talk about that you might not have any idea where to start. I remember doing one on some cloud-based software for construction companies. I would have had no idea what the benefits of that were if they hadn't at least said, okay, here are a few things we want you to start with, and here are a couple of links, get going. I've had other clients that offer me nothing. I'm writing an article now called Cute Cats of Instagram for a cat company. They just said, here's the title, go find it. And they just wanted some link to Instagram, and they didn't really care what the content was. Although once I've sent it to them, they may come back and say, no, change this or that. But they just sent that. Then I've had other clients that have wanted big projects, and really they don't have a lot of work done for me. One that I'm working on now is making a live stream accessible for people with hearing impairments. And the person that they originally started out with that they thought would be a great interview is on vacation for a month, and that was their only contact. So they said, do you have any contacts? And I said, yeah, actually I do. So I started there, and I just had to find my own stuff. But fortunately, they're paying me by the hour. So
yeah,
just keep looking until I find it. Then they realize that.
That's a lot of time online, and now I want you on my Trivial Pursuit team if you got to look up all that stuff. Wow, that's now tell us a story. What was your most unique project?
Oh my
besides
God.
The cats?
The cats are always unique. Probably one of the projects, the most interesting interview that I did was certainly with the people who put on an Easter sunrise service in the Garden Tomb in Jerusalem, and they live stream it around the world. So I did a blog with them. It was about 1,000 words, I think, 750 to 1,000 words on what that's all about, how I got started, and what they do and what the impact is. That was a really interesting thing to do. They had a lot of little pieces to that they were excited to talk about. So I enjoyed that piece. I think as far as just unusual things to write about, probably it's been one of the cat litter box articles that I've written about, or one of the hotels in Europe, that would talk about places to visit near them. Those were always kind of fascinating too.
Do you have to research those places to find out what's in the immediate area, or does a hotel give you the places to go? Both. Wow. Yeah, I do want you on my Trivial Pursuit team. So now talk about somebody who wants to start out. I know money, we talked about money a little bit, but they can make as much money as they put their work into, as much work as they put into it, right?
Basically, yes. As early on, you probably will volunteer, and then you'll make a little more, and then you'll, make a bare bones living, and people make quite good livings at it. I would recommend going to the site, that Carol Tice's site, Tice. I believe it's called, was it, Google her name, Carol, Tice.
She's very good. I've taken some of her classes.
And her site has a lot of information on how to get started. Her site, there are a lot of places. She recommends very specific granular things to do, with links to different sites to get started on. She talks about how to move from one level of writing and one level of income to the next. I would definitely recommend her site.
Thanks. And so you can make as much money as you want, as long as you're a halfway decent writer in copywriting.
There are people who have evidence that they make well over 6 figures just from writing.
Wow.
Writing copy. But of course, they write for big brands. They write white papers. They write video scripts. They write blog posts. They write product descriptions. They can write anything. They can write very, very fast, and they don't have to spend a lot of time going back over it, because they're just so skilled at it now. And that's part of what, once you can write fast enough and you charge by the project, then you're churning out a lot of projects in the same amount of time that it used to take you to earn 1 hour's salary. You start backing that up and you can earn it in half an hour.
Do you think it's beneficial? Well, it is beneficial for education, but do you think it's beneficial to take a copywriting class? Do you think you'll be able to ask for more money, start writing better? I know Carol has some on her site. We're talking about Carol a lot, but her classes are pretty good.
They are. I have never taken a copywriting class. I know that there are a lot for sale. I think I'd be very careful before I signed up for one. I know Donald Miller has one that's supposed to be very good, but it's also very expensive. So before you invest a lot of money into it, there's a lot of free information. There's a site called Copyblogger, lots of great information there. There's a site called Almost an Author, lots of great information there.
Yes, yes.
But there are a lot of places you can find free or very low cost information. So before you spend a few $100 or a few $1,000s on a class, make sure that you're going to recoup that investment, rather than just getting something for free or a lower cost.
Cool. You do other writing besides copywriting, don't you?
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
I've written a couple of devotionals for Devozine. I'm working on a devotional proposal for a devotional book now with someone else, so we're going to work on that together, provided that we find a publisher, provided that his agent finds us a publisher. And I do write fiction as well, although I've never had anything published yet. We keep pressing on with that as well.
Now, you had stated before that copywriting can cross over into other forms of writing. Can you expound on that? Like, can you give some examples?
I think I'm used to researching and being very specific. So I've noticed that particularly in fiction, I tend to be much more specific than I would have otherwise chosen to be. A lot of copywriting is about how you turn a particular phrase. And so these clever turns of phrase tend to make their way in. If you read Jan Karen's books, there basically isn't a plot to any of her Mitford novels. They're character driven entirely. But what makes them so great is she understands the people, and she's got these brilliant turns of phrase, and the way her characters speak back and forth is just so witty that you keep reading wondering what the next funny line is somebody's going to say. And she probably developed that over years and years of writing one-liners to go on, magazine spreads that would attract people deeper into the copy that she was producing.
That's wonderful. Hey, I want to thank you for being on with us. You have so much information. You've given me a lot of information. But before we go, how can people get a hold of you?
I have a website, hollandwebb.com. It's HOLLANDWEBB.com. Or you can email me at hollandw@hotmail.com. Or comment on an article on on Almost an Author, Serious Writer, and I try to respond to everything anybody says, so we can start a dialogue there as well.
I agree. You have some really, you're one of my favorite writers at Almost an Author. I shouldn't say that, but it's true, because you are witty, you grab attention, you hook the reader in with a story, and then you give them the copywriting information. I highly recommend that you go to Almost an Author. There's so much information there, especially if you want to learn more about copywriting. Well, thank you, Holland. And until next week, this is Cherrilynn Bisbano with Genre Chat.